The hearing room was already running hot, too hot. Cameras buzzed like angry insects, every seat packed, every reporter leaning forward as if waiting for a nuclear detonation. The walls seemed to hum with tension, the kind that vibrates in your bones before anyone says a word. It wasn't an ordinary congressional hearing. It felt like a courtroom, a battleground, and a live television spectacle all at once. At the center of it all sat Donald Trump's legal team, lounging back with smug, unbothered grins, men who looked certain they were about to steamroll their way through another news cycle. Their confidence wasn't quiet, it was arrogant, loud, the kind that grows in people who think they've already won. One of them even chuckled under his breath as Representative Jasmine Crockett adjusted her microphone. Crockett didn't respond to the smirks, the whispers, or the disrespect. She sat perfectly still, posture straight, eyes sharply focused on the door at the back of the room. The fluorescent lights overhead reflected faintly in her glasses, but beneath that glare was something clear, cold, and forceful. She knew what was coming. And unlike everyone else in the room, she was ready. "Madam Chair," she said, her voice steady but charged. "The witness has arrived." A ripple of surprise cut across the chamber. Reporters turned. Phones lifted. Trump's attorneys stopped whispering. One blinked rapidly, as if replaying the words to make sure he hadn't misheard. A surprise witness? At this stage? Impossible. Not allowed. Not expected. The double doors at the back creaked open, and in stepped a figure no one had seen on the list for today's testimony. The gallery erupted, gasps, murmurs, camera shutters clicking like gunfire. Even the C-SPAN crew jolted upright, refocusing their lenses with frantic speed. The witness walked forward slowly, deliberately, the sound of each step echoing through the chamber. You could feel people holding their breath. Even Crockett's usual calm had a tight edge to it, as if she knew this moment was about to detonate but had no control over how big the explosion would be. The clerk raised a hand. "Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?" "I do," the witness replied. Trump's lead attorney smirked again, leaning back in his chair. "This should be good," he whispered to the colleague beside him. He had no idea. The witness was seated, the room frozen, every eye locked on them. Crockett gave a small nod, signal enough. "Please state your name for the record," she said. The witness inhaled, lifted their head, and in 9 seconds shattered the entire facade Trump's team had built for months. "My name is." A pause. A shift of weight. "And I'm here because Donald Trump personally instructed actions that undermine the integrity of this investigation." Silence. Total, absolute silence. The kind that doesn't just hang, it crushes. Trump's attorneys stopped smiling. The gallery was motionless. Even the camera crews hesitated, as if unsure whether they were witnessing history or a hallucination. And Crockett sat back, expression unreadable, but the faintest flicker of triumph warming her eyes. But no one, not even Crockett, knew that those 9 seconds were about to rewrite the narrative of an entire political dynasty. The moment the witness's 9-second bombshell echoed through the chamber, the nation leaned closer to its screens. This wasn't just another political scuffle. This hearing, explosive, unpredictable, and broadcast live across every major network, had become the epicenter of a national reckoning. At the center of it stood Donald Trump's lawsuit, an aggressive, sweeping attempt to silence critics, rewrite his public legacy, and bulldoze his way back into political dominance. To his allies, this hearing was a stepping stone to restoring their chosen narrative. To everyone else, it was a line in the sand. And standing firmly on that line was Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett. In the weeks leading up to the hearing, Trump's legal team had strutted confidently through talk shows, podcast interviews, and donor events, promising a decisive victory that would humiliate their opponents. They painted Trump as the misunderstood victim of a hostile political universe, someone wronged, persecuted, and righteously seeking justice. But inside the hearing room, the fantasy collided with someone unwilling to surrender to it. Crockett brought with her a reputation for precision, courage, and a gift for slicing through misinformation like a scalpel through silk. She wasn't there to spar. She was there to defend the truth. Outside the political bubble, millions of Americans watched with breathless intensity, on phones, on tablets, in break rooms, even projected onto classroom walls and civics classes. Cable news networks replaced regular programming with red banners screaming breaking news. Commentators debated in real time, interrupting each other like caffeinated auctioneers. Online, the digital battlefield was raging. Hashtags erupted across platforms. Hashtag Crockett versus Trump. Hashtag Truth on Trial. Hashtag 9-second nuke. Within minutes, each hashtag had crossed 1 million mentions. Reels, clips, stitched reactions, and memes hit timelines faster than moderators could control. TikTok flooded with side-by-side analyses. X, Twitter, swarmed with fiery threads. Instagram stories became a rainbow of political commentary. Every second of the hearing was being dissected, reinterpreted, and fought over. The ideological divide sharpened to a blade's edge. One side claiming democracy itself was under siege, the other insisting the hearing was the first step to restoring a lost empire. The world outside the hearing room grew louder, but inside it was becoming suffocatingly quiet. Politicians across the country subtweeted cryptically as the hearing unfolded. Some hinted that the truth is about to come out. Others warned of deep state narratives. A few simply posted wide-eyed emojis. Congressional staffers in other states watched from hallways. Even world leaders, normally aloof to domestic U.S. drama, released carefully worded statements emphasizing the global importance of transparency and justice. But the stakes weren't merely political, they were symbolic. This hearing was democracy trying to assert its authority against the gravitational pull of authoritarian entitlement. It was accountability wrestling with a legacy built on spectacle. It was truth confronting a multi-billion-dollar machine designed to distort reality for profit and power. And then, just when the chamber believed it had mapped the battlefield, just when analysts thought they understood the contours of the conflict, just when Crockett seemed firmly in control, something shifted. A staffer delivered an envelope to the front table. The room went still. Reporters exchanged looks. Trump's lawyers leaned in. Crockett's eyes narrowed. No one knew it yet, but the hearing was about to plunge into uncharted territory, far deeper, and far more dangerous than anyone had prepared for. For decades, Donald Trump had mastered one skill better than any business tactic, political strategy, or public performance: the art of intimidation. Long before he sat in a courtroom facing the consequences of yet another self-inflicted crisis, he had perfected the craft of bending reality around his will. If he didn't like the truth, he buried it beneath lawsuits. If someone challenged him, he crushed them with insults, threats, or endless public humiliation. His empire was never just built on buildings, it was built on fear. In the 80s, he weaponized litigation like a billionaire's sledgehammer. Dozens of contractors told the same story: if Trump owed you money, good luck collecting it. If he wanted to silence you, he buried you under paperwork until your will snapped before your wallet did. He bragged about it in interviews, grinned, even, as if cruelty were a badge of honor. His message was always the same: you don't beat Trump, Trump beats you. As he transitioned from mogul to reality TV star, his tactics only evolved. On television, he sharpened that persona, the unpredictable king in the gold chair, firing people not because he had to, but because the spectacle made him feel untouchable. Audiences laughed. Trump took notes. Chaos wasn't a byproduct, it was leverage. He learned that if you make enough noise, the truth becomes background static. Then came politics. And with politics came the rallies. Massive arenas filled with supporters who absorbed every punchline, every insult, every conspiracy. Trump realized that if he said something loudly enough, his base would echo it louder still. The institutions he once merely mocked, judges, lawmakers, journalists, now became targets he could direct millions toward with a single tweet. Accountability became, to him, an illusion. A thing for other people. Not for Donald J. Trump. Courtrooms were just stages. Judges were props. Prosecutors? Overpaid extras in a production he believed he controlled. And whenever he entered a hearing room, he carried with him that old, stubborn confidence. the belief that his presence alone reshaped the outcome. There were flashes of this arrogance everywhere. The time he threw a tantrum because a court date interfered with his golf schedule. The moment he stormed out of a deposition after being asked a question he didn't like. And of course, the infamous outbursts on the stand, long, rambling tirades where he contradicted himself within minutes but blamed everyone else for the confusion. Trump's worldview had become dangerously simple: he wins, or the system is corrupt. There was no in-between. And so he walked into this hearing certain of victory. Certain his legal team could bully and posture their way through another challenge. Certain that Jasmine Crockett, sharp-tongued, unbothered, and unimpressed, was merely another obstacle to bulldoze. But the flaw in Trump's armor had always been the same: his arrogance. The more he believed he was invincible, the more blind he became to the people he underestimated. And today, sitting just behind him, someone he didn't even consider a threat was preparing to deliver a truth sharp enough to pierce his entire narrative. Before the world saw Jasmine Crockett swinging rhetorical thunderbolts across congressional hearings, she was just a sharp-eyed daughter of a working-class family, raised on grit, truth, and the stubborn belief that silence in the face of injustice is itself a form of violence. Her childhood was not cushioned by privilege. She grew up in neighborhoods where political decisions weren't abstract. They decided whether buses ran on time, whether schools had counselors, whether mothers got to come home safe after a late shift. Racism wasn't a headline. It lived in the glances, the lower job opportunities, the assumptions people made the moment she walked into a room. And sexism? She learned early that a woman's volume had to be twice as loud to be heard half as clearly. But those pressures didn't break her. They sharpened her. Crockett's first fight wasn't in a courtroom. It was at a school board meeting when she was just a teenager, defending a teacher unfairly targeted by policies meant to weed out outspoken educators. She stood at the microphone, hands trembling, voice steady, and realized power didn't sit behind the desk. Power spoke truth, even when it shook. Years later, as a young attorney, Crockett faced the justice system from the ground up. She defended clients who couldn't afford high-power legal teams or political connections. She walked into courtrooms where prosecutors smirked and judges sighed, assuming they already knew who she was, what she was capable of, and how small they expected her to remain. Every stereotype thrown at her became another brick beneath her feet. She fought abusive landlords, corrupt local officials, discriminatory policing practices. She wasn't just representing clients, she was challenging systems. And every victory was a message to the world: underestimate me at your own risk. Her transition into public office was almost inevitable. Constituents pushed her into it. They saw the fire, the unwavering focus, the lawyer who tore apart contradictions like they were loose threads on a cheap suit. She became the nightmare of anyone who tried to wield power carelessly. Her sharp questioning, her surgical ability to expose hypocrisy, these weren't skills she learned in Washington. They were born from survival. By the time she entered Congress, Crockett was more than prepared. She was made for the chaos. Political bullies didn't intimidate her. She'd already survived versions of them long before C-SPAN cameras rolled. She walked into hearings with the confidence of someone who never had anything handed to her. For her, every room of power was another battleground she'd already trained for. And when Trump's legal team scoffed at her, when pundits dismissed her as too emotional, when critics tried to belittle her intellect, Crockett didn't flinch. She had heard worse. She had overcome worse. Her strength wasn't performative, it was lived. The truth is, Jasmine Crockett didn't rise to meet this moment. This moment rose to meet her. The hearing room had transformed into a pressure cooker, every second thick with anticipation. Trump's legal team, emboldened by rehearsed strategies and a sense of invulnerability, leaned forward with calculated smirks, tossing out questions coated with subtle condescension. Their tone suggested certainty, a belief that they were controlling the narrative, that Crockett was merely a foil for their theatrics. Each interruption was designed to provoke, to unsettle, to corner. The air buzzed with tension, as cameras panned across the room, capturing the flicker of raised eyebrows, the stiff posture of the audience, and the barely restrained murmurs that hinted at an underlying unease. Crockett, however, remained a study in calm precision. Every word she chose was deliberate, every pause measured to maximize clarity and impact. When faced with a particularly loaded question, she didn't flinch. Instead, she dissected it slowly, exposing contradictions in the opposing argument, highlighting logical gaps, and subtly undermining the overconfidence that radiated from Trump's team. Her voice carried the weight of preparation and lived experience, each syllable landing with clarity that demanded attention, even from those who had tried to write her off before she stepped into the room. As the exchanges escalated, the villain began to show cracks. A twitch of a smile turned forced, a hand trembled slightly over legal documents, a glance flicked nervously toward the control room. The once commanding presence of the opposition faltered under the steady gaze of the hero who refused to be rattled. Crockett's precision was surgical, and the room responded. The murmurs grew louder, smartphones hovered midair, ready to capture every pivotal moment for live feeds and instant social media commentary. The power dynamics were shifting, subtle but undeniable. Every question, every counter, every measured rebuttal brought the hearing closer to a critical point of no return. Crockett's body language was confident, her eyes sharp, her gestures minimal yet deliberate, signals of someone who had mastered both strategy and psychology. The room sensed it. Something monumental was about to happen. The villain's frustration was rising, but so too was the hero's command of the moment. Then came the signal, a quiet, deliberate nod from Crockett toward her team. The audience leaned in. Even Trump's lawyers, caught up in their assumption of control, did not see it coming. And then, as the room braced itself, the witness leaned toward the microphone. For a full 30 seconds, the hearing room vibrated with a kind of anticipatory electricity, the kind that comes right before a thunderstorm splits the sky open. Everyone felt it, though no one quite understood why. Cameras zoomed in. Commentators on every major network leaned forward in their chairs. Even Trump's lead attorney, a man notorious for smirking through disaster, tightened his jaw ever so slightly. And then the witness, Dr. Elaine Mercer, a former data analyst with a resume cleaner than a polished courtroom bench, adjusted her glasses, leaned toward the microphone, and delivered the 9 seconds that would become the most replayed clip in modern political history. Her voice didn't shake. It didn't waver. It carried a calm, surgical precision as she said, "The documents Trump claims were fabricated, were submitted by his own legal team, under his personal instruction." 9 seconds. 9 words that sliced straight through months of bluster. 9 seconds that erased every smirk on Trump's legal bench. At first, there was no reaction, no noise, no movement, just stunned, absolute stillness. It was the silence that follows an explosion, the kind that rings louder than sound itself. Then it hit. A tidal wave of gasps. Audible whispers. A dropped pen clattering onto the table in the second row. One of Trump's attorneys blinked rapidly, flipping through his notes as if somewhere, hidden deep in the pages, there had to be a way out of this. Another mouthed the word, "No," as if denial could rewrite reality. Trump, watching from a private monitor, leaned forward so abruptly the camera shook. His expression contorted, part confusion, part fury, part horror. He mouthed something that looked suspiciously like, "Who is she?" as though the identity of the messenger could erase the truth of the message. But the most powerful image belonged to Jasmine Crockett. She didn't gloat. She didn't lean back smugly. She didn't even blink. Instead, she offered a small, quiet nod, one that carried the weight of every courtroom she'd ever stood in, every fight she'd ever taken on, every injustice she'd ever refused to let slide. A warrior's smile. Controlled. Confident. Devastating. Within seconds, the internet ignited. Hashtag 9-second nuke. Hashtag Crockett crushes chaos. Hashtag Trump takedown live. Memes flooded every timeline, some showing Trump melting like a wax statue in slow motion, others editing in dramatic movie sound effects at the moment Mercer dropped the line. TikTok remixes appeared before the hearing even moved to the next speaker. Screenshots of Trump's frozen expression spread like wildfire across Reddit, Instagram, and political Twitter. Cable news anchors tripped over their scripts. Phones vibrated everywhere inside the courtroom as millions of Americans reacted in real time. Even politicians who typically avoided the chaos couldn't help themselves. Subtle eyebrow emojis, cryptic quotes from past hearings, and single-word tweets like, "Oof." Crockett, meanwhile, sat perfectly still, letting the truth do the work. This was no longer a hearing. It was a turning point. A shift in gravity. A crack in the foundation of Trump's carefully constructed narrative, one powerful enough to spread far beyond the four walls of that room. But the shock in the room was nothing compared to what unfolded across the country minutes later. For a few seconds after the witness's 9-second truth bomb detonated inside the hearing room, the world seemed to freeze. Then, like a dam bursting, every screen in America ignited at once. Newsrooms scrambled to reroute broadcasts. Producers barked orders through earpieces. Churns flipped in real time. Crockett's witness just obliterated Trump's argument. 9 seconds that could change everything. Clips of the moment hit the internet before the committee chair even restored order. TikTok, X, Instagram, every platform lit up with the same collective gasp. Reaction videos multiplied by the thousands. Wide eyes, dropped jaws, people replaying the clip in slow motion to savor every syllable. Late-night hosts weren't even on air yet, but writers were already drafting monologues. One tweeted, "I think we found the cure for political boredom." Cable panels went live within minutes. Analysts leaned forward in their chairs, replaying the clip frame by frame like NFL commentators analyzing a game-winning touchdown. Experts debated the legal implications. Is this the collapse of Trump's entire strategy? Did Crockett just end this case with surgical precision? This is the most embarrassing pivot point in a political hearing since, well, ever. Even seasoned pundits seemed energized, almost giddy. They weren't just reporting news, they were witnessing a cultural moment. Meanwhile, on social media, hashtags surged like a digital tidal wave. Hashtag Crockett crushed it. Hashtag 9-second nuke. Hashtag truth bomb of the year. Hashtag Trump versus reality. Fan edits appeared instantly, Crockett's calm face in slow motion, overlaid with dramatic music, Trump's attorneys looking like they'd seen a ghost, the witness with an aura glow and captions like, "When you come prepared." Trump's team rushed out a statement, but it read more like a scramble than a rebuttal, vague, defensive, heavy on adjectives, light on facts. Supporters parroted talking points while critics mocked them mercilessly. Some longtime skeptics, usually cautious, admitted on live TV, This might actually shift public opinion." Within an hour, the moment had evolved beyond politics. It became a meme, a punchline, a symbol of accountability, not just a hearing highlight, but a cultural reset. Because the narrative had slipped from Trump's hands and landed squarely in Crockett's. She wasn't just a congresswoman anymore, she was a phenomenon. But beneath the noise, a deeper truth was crystallizing. The 9 seconds in that congressional hearing were more than a viral moment. They were a declaration of principle. Jasmine Crockett's witness didn't just dismantle a lawsuit. They illuminated the enduring truth that integrity and courage are stronger than intimidation and spectacle. Across the country, viewers felt the weight of that revelation. Authority can be challenged, entitlement can be exposed, and the powerful are not untouchable. This was not about theatrics or scorekeeping. It was about accountability, justice, and the unwavering light of truth piercing through layers of pretense. For marginalized communities, the message was deeply personal. Crockett's calm authority and unflinching stance demonstrated that lived experience, resilience, and intellect could confront systemic power head-on. Her triumph validated the countless voices often ignored or dismissed, proving that careful preparation, moral clarity, and steadfastness can level even the most unequal playing fields. It wasn't simply a win for one attorney, it was a victory for anyone who has been underestimated because of race, gender, or circumstance. At a broader level, this moment reinforced the cornerstone of democracy, that no individual, no matter how wealthy or influential, can rewrite reality when confronted by undeniable facts and reasoned argument. Crockett embodied what leadership should look like: thoughtful, courageous, and rooted in principle rather than ego. Her example reminded citizens that public discourse is not a theater for arrogance, but a platform for truth, accountability, and shared responsibility. And for every viewer watching, there was a personal call to action. Courage does not always roar. Speaking truth, standing firm, and acting with integrity can reverberate far beyond the immediate moment. Even in the face of immense pressure, one can create change through clarity, conviction, and moral courage. This is the essence of what happened in those 9 seconds. The power of truth, the potency of principle, and the undeniable impact of steadfastness became crystal clear. And that brings us back to the title, because the legacy shattered in those 9 seconds will echo far beyond this moment. Jasmine Crockett's triumph in that hearing was more than a legal victory. It was a masterclass in courage, composure, and truth prevailing over entitlement and bluster. In just 9 seconds, she flipped the narrative, exposed arrogance, and reminded the nation that integrity cannot be silenced. The headline is clear: Crockett's witness destroyed Trump's case, and in doing so, reaffirmed that moral clarity and steadfastness are more powerful than spectacle and intimidation. For viewers at home, this was a moment to reflect on the values that truly matter: accountability, courage, and the belief that every voice has weight. Crockett's example proves that preparation, resilience, and principled action can challenge even the most entrenched power structures. Her story is a call to stand firm, to speak truth, and to insist that justice is more than a concept. It is a practice that each of us can uphold in our daily lives. Now, it's your turn to engage. Like this video if you believe in courage over chaos. Comment below to share your thoughts and join the conversation. Subscribe to the channel to stay informed about moments that matter, and hit the notification bell so you never miss the unfolding of history in real time. Share this story with friends and family to amplify the message: truth matters, integrity matters, and courage matters. Voices like yours keep the movement alive. By staying informed, engaged, and principled, you help ensure that dignity, accountability, and justice continue to shape our society. Together, we can champion the leaders and moments that remind us what democracy and moral courage truly look like.